Hello and welcome to SCLO Consulting Live. My name's Martin Crowson and it's great to have you here with us today. I'm also joined today by the Managing Director of SCLO Consulting, Steve O'Hare. Steve, morning and great to have you with us.
Good morning, Martin, and thank you for setting this all up. This is our first go at a live broadcast, so there's no safety net, so we'll see how we go.
Yeah, let's hope that internet connection keeps as we go along. But
as you said, as we were prepping, all the kids are back at school now, so hopefully there will be no massive surges in activity. If people start going back to work and not working from home all the time, that'll be even better. So
yeah, very much so. We'll talk in detail about the application process in a minute, but for those of you that don't know about Steve's work with SCLO Consulting, and particularly his work with RoATP in the past, Steve, would you like to tell us all a little bit about your experience working with it?
Yeah, sure. So for those that are interested in the Register of Apprenticeship Training Providers, we're on the umpteenth iteration of this, and ultimately this is the ESFA's gateway to become an apprenticeship provider. It's their way of managing who can deliver apprenticeships and managing the quality of the provision that's out there at the first stage. Obviously, there's further stages down which Ofsted get involved in, audit and compliance issues and all of that lot. But this is the first stage that gives ultimately the pass to the party for providers to be able to deliver apprenticeships. Previously, up until the tail end, is where I'm going to try not to get my years wrong, up to the tail end of 2018, the RoATP process was relatively straightforward. It wasn't a hugely detailed system. At the tail end of 18, the current process was launched, and it represented a bit of a step change in terms of detail, in terms of compliance activity, in terms of understanding and demonstrating that actually you are a good quality provider and you are a good organisation that's delivering ultimately what is the government's flagship work-based learning programme. So it was a real change. So between January 19 and March, April last year, when the world ended, I was involved in a heck of a lot of applications, probably too many to count, in a range of different ways. So SCLO supported supported AELP in terms of delivering training sessions for its members around how to go through the process, and did a whole raft and range of webinars and face-to-face teaching sessions. That's a thing of the past. Around there, and all of those bits to sort of give that indication of, this is what it is, and actually trying to, I don't know, reassure people that although it looked big and scary, and actually when you first look at it, because there's lots and lots of boxes and lots of bits of paper and a big long list of stuff, that it is a little bit scary. But actually, by breaking it down into bite-sized chunks, it becomes less scary. In terms of then organisations, I supported a ton of providers, and those that were already on the register, those that were new to the register. So one of the key things with the register was all supporting providers. So even smaller providers that only did a component part of an apprenticeship had to come onto the register. So supported them, and I think there's different ways in which you did that. So that was either essentially running the whole application for providers and working it all the way through it, to the extreme of being that reassuring second pair or third or fourth or fifth pair of eyes, just to confirm that what they'd actually put was compliant, was what the ESFA wanted to have, complied with the guidance, and all those bits around there. And also there was somewhere in between where there was a bit of everything, of do a bit of this, bit of that, bit of the other, and get people over the line. So yeah, and it was a really interesting process. And actually, I think the ESFA, they at times get knocked, but I thought from my perspective as a looking at what they were asking for. I thought it was a good process. It was a robust process. The guidance evolved over the period of like a year that it was going. Actually, guidance notes for something was decent. Actually, they told people what they wanted to see, and it was really important to do that.
So the process has come round again. And what do you know about the timings and when it will start? And has it been a surprise to yourself and organisations that it's come round again so quickly, some 18 months after the last time, I think?
Right. So let's start with the last question. The last question first. Is it a surprise? No, not really, because actually, when people did their application, when this current iteration was launched, it was meant to be a year renewal. So after every single year of you being on the register, you were due to be refreshed. You had to do that was always the plan. So back in 2018-19, there was always a plan to refresh the register. I just think that where you see some stuff on social media and in the trade press that there's concern and whatnot with it, I think that's not so much about the fact that it's come round again, because ultimately it needs to come round, because if you're going to have something, you need to have something. And if you say you're going to refresh it every year, then theoretically you should be refreshing it every year. Yeah. I think the biggest thing is what is the world around us. Ultimately the world is not what it was. We've just gone into lockdown this time last year. So if we went back 18 months, the world is a totally different place. And I think that's from a provider apprenticeships thing is just, they've got so many other things on at the minute. They're still trying to get people back get learners back in learning, all of those sorts of things. I get from that perspective that the timing ain't great. However, at some point,
the ESFA, but the ESFA are just doing the job, basically.
Yeah, they're doing the job. At the end of the day, they've said they're going to do it. They've got to do it. Actually, technically, they're probably 6 months late. Actually more than 6 months late. They're almost 18 months late in some respects. So for those that were approved, or a year late, for those that were approved in sort of April last year, which would have been the first batch of those that were approved, actually, or April 19, you're nearly 2 years. So a lot of organisations, by the time they do their refresh, it will be 2 years since the time that they actually applied for the first time. So it's not not a huge surprise. In terms of timings, so the refresh is due to start from the first lot of invites to be applied will be going out at the start of the month. So we're at some point next week, organisations will start to see an invite, and then the first applications need to be done by the end of May. So similar to how it worked before, and I think the key thing to just reiterate at this stage is that this is existing organisations. So if you are already on RoAT, you're going to be getting an invite. So the first lot are due to be going out at the start of April, with view of people applying at the end of May, and then there will be a monthly invite thereafter. So you'll have the first batch will be in April to apply in May, then you'll have some in May to apply in June, and so on and so on and so on. So ultimately, organisations get a 2-month window to be able to apply. So similarly to what they did before. So again, when we talk about surprise and all of that, that's a sensible period. It has to be done, and I think the SFA are doing pretty much everything they can to try and take away the pain, but still, maintain that quality that is ultimately their job to do. I don't know how the organisations will get invited. There's obviously a matrix or a spreadsheet or something that the ESFA have that sort of will determine that, because last time it wasn't alphabetical, it wasn't on Ofsted rating, it was just it was a little bit, there was no clear pattern. There may have been, but I couldn't see a clear pattern. So that may happen, that may happen again. But my gut feel is that you're probably looking at the same line of cycle that you had 2 years ago. So if you were if you were in the first batch last time, you're probably going to be in the first batch this time. If you're in the last batch last time, you're probably in the last batch this time. And that process is going to go on through most of the remainder of 2021, because ultimately there's 1,500 organisations that or thereabouts that are going to need refreshing.
So when the reality of it kicks in for the organisations that they do need to do another application, should they be worried? Is it like to be as rigorous process, even more rigorous than last time?
Good providers and providers that do what they're meant to be doing shouldn't be worried. Ultimately, this is an opportunity for providers to show themselves in a good light, to put their best foot forward.
Yeah.
This is all about systems, process, understanding of market, working with customers. And these are the things that good providers get out of bed for in the morning. This is what they set out to do. It's about just demonstrating that you are a good provider. So if you are good at what you do, then this shouldn't really be an issue. In terms of rigor, I think if providers want to start getting themselves ready, I would look at the last lot of guidance. I'd look at what you submitted previously. That's going to has a lot of information in there. There is a lot of detail, a lot of activity that you have to do all around the quality of your delivery and the quality of your processes that underpin what you have. So I would have thought it would be very similar in terms of what's produced, because actually I can't think of too many other things that you'd want to see in there. I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. For me, the one thing that was missing was a little bit around data security. All you needed was an ICO registration last time, which in this day and age, I don't think really cuts it. So if we look at recent ESFA procurements, actually, if we look at government procurement in general, there is now a mandation that people need to have the Cyber Essentials certificate. So I would have thought, as part of this process, those that haven't got Cyber Essentials need to get Cyber Essentials and need to have it for their application. So if that's something you've not got, I think now's the time to get it before you get asked to go and get it, because that's not a quick process. And actually having a Cyber Essentials certificate is far easier than demonstrating that you're actually working towards the principles of it for the purpose of this application. The other thing that if it was me in strengthening things up, the staffing part, I think, could be a little bit more robust, because it's almost I don't know how you would prove that you have these people in your organisation, these people that you work with and comply with, data protection stuff within there. But there will be something that sort of has a little bit more robustness around people's qualifications, sector knowledge. I think the key thing with the apprenticeship standards, it's not necessarily about your qualifications, it's about your understanding of the sector is the biggest thing, and actually how do you teach people how to do something in the sector within it. For example, a good bricklayer isn't necessarily going to be someone who's going to have lots and lots of teaching qualifications, but could teach someone how to do that. So that's going to be interesting how that bit is presented. The rest, I think, will be seeing that your policies and processes have been reviewed, they're updated, they're all of the above. And if we also look at the sort of like the rhetoric around the announcements around RoATP, I think there's more than likely going to be something around proving that you're actually delivering, or you actually a little bit more onus on, you're actually doing what you say you're going to be doing. And I don't want to, this might sound a bit harsh, I don't know, but ultimately the SFA want to have providers that are delivering at the minute, and there will be a number of reasons for, and particularly in certain sectors, that providers won't have been delivering, particularly if we look at things like the hospitality sector and some of the those sorts of things where they just can't, they can't do an apprenticeship because a lot of the places are closed. It's just, how the SFA are going to have to come up with a way of doing that fairly. But I'm sure there is a way, and I think there's more that, that proof of going forward.
Do you expect companies to fall by the wayside?
Again, without sounding like Donald Trump, there will be the organisations that will have gone, and that's really horrible. In the last year, it's been a horrific year for pretty much everyone. I mean, anyone who says they've had the best year of their lives, I'm thinking they're probably not quite telling the truth on that one. But there will be, unfortunately, organisations that will have gone. They won't have, as much as the government has given lots of grants and all of those other things, there will be organisations that will disappear. And I think part of the refresh is actually for the ESFA to sort of get a benchmark as to where they actually are in terms of their provider base. So actually how many providers they've got. There are still, I can guarantee there's still providers on RoATP that don't deliver, never have delivered, got on, some got on for the right reasons, but then there's been delays in the standards they wanted to deliver coming out, or there've been delays with the world, so actually we had to furlough all our staff, so therefore we're not doing any apprenticeships. That's fair enough, but then I think there's a proportion still of the organisations that will put on there as a vehicle to sell, which the ESFA is still trying to clamp down on. I don't know how many are on there, and I don't think you'd ever know, but I think that's still a concern that the ESFA have.
Okay. How important is it for a process like this to actually go back to what you did last time, examine the way you went about that, see not only what you did right, but also what you can learn from for the upcoming application process?
I think it's absolutely fundamental. The best way to look forward is to look back. So, review everything that was done before, look at the policies and processes, make sure they're up to date. I mean, that's going to be the biggest thing. Obviously, people have had staff off on furlough, there have been gaps in stuff, but actually, this is now the time when you're starting to get people back into the business to do that root and branch review and make sure that all of those things are up to date. So actually look back at those things, look at what you needed to change, look at what you needed to update. One thing I liked about the process before was actually you had a very detailed guidance document. Review that guidance document. There will probably be changes. It's just an invariable fact of life. There will be some changes in there, but those that had, that's what I liked about the process. You had a guidance document, you put in your application, there was then the period of time that the SFA could come back and ask you questions and say, what's this, how's this, can you provide us more evidence in this bit, or can you provide us more of this, that, or the other? We need to look at that again, and just where you had additional questions, to sort those additional questions out, and make sure that you don't get asked additional questions this time round.
It's been a huge amount of change that you just touched on for so many companies over the last 18 months since the last process. That being particularly difficult for people when they're trying to get themselves organised to put together a bid like this. Could it cause some difficulties?
Sorry, Martin, you say that again?
I'm saying there's been so many changes over the last 18 months for everybody, and organisations will have faced problems as well, and changes themselves throughout the last 18 months with furlough, etc. Do you see that providing any particular difficulties with organisations or companies when they're getting their applications together this time?
I think there will invariably be internal challenges that companies need to overcome, but this is really important. It's sort of like, this is one of your priorities, so actually you need to make sure that this is a priority activity, and then things are done effectively within there. So it's about being organised. I mean, there will be things about how you deliver. So actually, if you think about how the world works now, I mean, previously when we talked about, if we think about the quality policy, which is one of the key things that we need to look at, it's how do you observe delivery? Well, previously, observation of delivery was somebody who would go in and watch a session, sit in a session, and actually see what was going on. Now there needs to probably be that consideration of how you do that via Zoom or via Teams, or how that's done. So it's about updating everything to what you're actually doing now and what you're going to be doing going forward. Because I don't think we'll ever. I think what the pandemic has shown is there are different ways of working and different ways of teaching, So there will be ways in which you need to, you're not going to go back to a full 100% face-to-face delivery model anymore. I just don't think that'll ever happen, given what people will have learned in the last year or so. So I think there's that bit about bringing that up and making sure that that's still the positive thing within it.
Okay. You say people shouldn't be surprised by the application process coming around again because it's been 18 months. But what can people do right now to get ready for when their turn comes?
As I said, go back and review what you did before. Get your previous application up. Make sure that you've got that all updated. Get all of those bits done, because that's going to be broadly asked for again. So just make sure you've got that in place. Also make sure that, and this hasn't been clarified yet, so make sure that you've got a Bravo Solutions, your Bravo Solutions portal, so the portal that was used for you to go through before. Make sure that's up to date, and the email addresses on it that people are emailing to needs to be updated. Needs to be updated, so it's going to somebody who's definitely within the business, because again, it's tough times. We've got to make sure that name is going to the alert is going to the right person, so you get your invite in time. I would also just the ESFA or the DFE have moved their e-procurement stuff to a new system called Jagger. I say a new system. Jagger bought Bravo Solutions, so actually it's the same thing. It looks exactly the same. It's just been rebranded and it's a slightly different colour. However, you might well need to just set yourself a login in that, because they may use that as their procurement vehicle going forward. As yet, that's not confirmed. And the ESFA are meant to be launching the guidance notes by the end of March. So hopefully by next Wednesday, that will all be sorted.
Fantastic. Steve, thanks. If people want to get in touch and discuss their situation with you and SCLO Consulting, how do they go about doing that?
There you go. That was if by magic. Please drop me an email. Drop me an email, and we can pick up from there. And have a conversation around things, and look to see how SCLO can support organisations through that whole process.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning, Steve. Thanks for joining us. It's been much appreciated.
Yeah, no, it's been good fun. Something a bit different.
Yeah, everyone that's been watching, thank you very much for your time as well, and for joining in. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for updates about when the next SCLO Consulting live broadcast will be. You can find out more on the website, which is www.scloconsulting.co.uk. You can also follow us on Twitter and follow us on LinkedIn as well. Steve O'Hare on LinkedIn. That's it from me, Martin Crowson. Thank you once again for joining us, and good luck, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.